next thing that we want to do, and I do want to make sure we get Trang in here. She's been very patiently waiting for us and getting us involved. So I will go ahead and get her introduced. She's a Washington delegate going to the National Convention in Philly, representing Bernie Sanders and us in Washington State. So I'll let her introduce herself a bit more, tell you a little bit about herself and how she became a delegate.
Great, thank you for having me. Again, I'm Trang. I am supporting Bernie Sanders as a national delegate in Philadelphia. When I'm not phone banking for Bernie or donating to him, I'm a fourth grade teacher in Renton, which is just south of Seattle. I'm a child of Vietnamese immigrants who fled their war-torn homeland. My mom and dad were both able to get college degrees. My mom is now a social worker, and my dad is a retired sheet metal worker. And what's amazing is not just how they met. I can save that for another segment. But they were able to graduate college with no debt and buy a house. That to me is so amazing. However, fast forward 20 years later, and their daughter is faced with a very different reality. It just doesn't sit well with me that our current system punishes people who want to get an education or who want to be in education. So I'm just ready to move beyond being a leader in my classroom and helping fellow delegates elect Bernie as our president and pushing for a progressive platform that works for the working class.
Absolutely, that's a wonderful story, and I'm personally curious. I don't know. Have you talked politics with your parents, and have they, being recent immigrants, or well, not recently now, but when they had come and experienced that America versus the America you're experiencing, do they see the differences? Do they not? I know some parents are like have the perception that it must still be the same for you as it is for them. Have you been able to relate with that without, I mean, going too much into detail, but like, have you experienced that? How has your experience been with that?
Well, I will say my parents were originally Hillary Clinton supporters, and I'm for Bernie. So what I did was I set my mom up with some links about his platform, some videos of him speaking about issues that are relevant to us, but to an empty room in Congress, which is so heartbreaking. But as soon as she was given access to his experience, his integrity, his character, she has wholeheartedly supported Bernie and supported my run to be national delegate. So I just feel very, very blessed, and I'm going to work hard. So be expecting that.
That's awesome. That's great to hear that you were able to get that conversion, and as everyone counted. And on that note, with delegates heading to the convention, there's been some static over the convention platform, events going on outside. Without diving too much into that stuff, I just want to get a feel for what you're expecting from the convention, what you feel like has transpired leading up towards it, and what you think may happen in between now and then, as far as for what we can expect to see as citizens and our delegates getting engaged in that process.
Sure. Well, during the day, I plan on attending caucuses to hear about intersectionality of issues that affect working class Americans. And I'll be there on the floor casting my vote, participating fully and effectively. I'm helping out Adair Schmidt, who was mentioned multiple times, with communications, relaying messages so that delegates know when to be present if there's a vote, and just keeping lines of communication open, because I think that's what's going to lead to our success, is keeping everyone involved and having a transparent system. As in terms of protests outside, I think that we need to encourage a vigorous democracy. We're all going to play different roles. It's just a matter of coming together and working towards that common goal.
Excellent. I'm curious how you've seen, and now that you've experienced this, and is this the first time that you've been at this level, I presume, and gone through this caucus process?
Yeah, I'm from California, which is a primary state, and recently just moved here to beautiful Washington. And going from a primary state to a caucus state was totally different. It's tiered, it's complex, but once I understood the system, I really started to get involved. What happens is you start off with a precinct level caucus. Ours was at an elementary school just 2 blocks away, and I became a caucus site leader. That included helping people register to vote, to be part of the Democratic Party, and then I became a precinct captain. What that entailed was reporting to the Sanders campaign about any discrepancies that were happening at the caucus and calculating delegate math and sending that to them as well. And then I just got to move through at the legislative level, congressional level, and then got elected at the Washington State Democratic Convention just 2 weeks ago. So I'm still living off that high, very, very excited and humbled by this whole process.
Excellent. And on that note, I'm curious. You mentioned before that when you're not doing this, that you're teaching a class of 4th graders, I believe. How do
Yeah.
you see both your experience in this process and the things that are coming to light as a result of being part of this process that you can both pass along to kids as young as 4th grade, or that can be involved or engaged at the other curricular levels that you may be engaged in the education system at?
That's a great question. I want to share with you a activity that I did, a civics activity that I did with my class. So what I did was I held a primary in my classroom, and I had the platforms of Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, and Bernie Sanders, and I created a little voter pamphlet for them, except I gave all of the candidates gender-neutral names, and then presented their ideas on education, immigration, minimum wage, and something else. I forgot. But what we did was we went over what each candidate believed in, and they were really amazing. As soon as we got to Corey Pat, which is my name for Donald Trump, they were like, oh, this is definitely Donald Trump. He wants to build a wall. He doesn't believe women are equal to men. Like, what is this? They were in total outrage. And normally I have a system in class where, you raise your hand. But at this point, I was just like, keep debating. This is wonderful. This is what we need, is this dialogue and young people being involved in the dialogue. So we went through the voter pamphlet, and I gave them all a ballot and taught them how to vote, where to sign, and 18 of my students voted for Bernie Sanders, and 3 voted for Hillary, and then no one voted for Donald Trump. And then at the end, we just had a discussion, if you want to share who you voted for, you can, and why. And I think many people just really found Bernie Sanders' message relevant to what their needs were, what their families' needs were. And I remember one student who had voted for Hillary Clinton saying, I voted for this person, but I would have been fine with, Bernie Sanders because he seems like a great guy, or he seems like a great candidate. Again, we weren't using candidates' real names. We were just using the gender-neutral names that I had made for them. So.
That sounds like an amazing activity, and I hope other teachers are going to hear this somehow, some way, and we can get that happening in more different places. And I think it could work better in some ways with local candidates or like smaller races where they won't have been bombarded by media or their parents about how to feel about one way or the other, so that they'll be engaging with the ideas even more on the basis of the ideas themselves rather than some of the influence. I'm kind of curious whether you saw any of that bleed into the conversation, about whether you heard things that because you had a decent idea of what your students were like, that whether they were verbalizing things that didn't seem like they had kind of come from themselves, but had been they were repeating something that they had heard but might not actually understand. Did you see any of that, or did the kids really try to engage on the material itself?
This happened a while ago, so I'm thinking, but I can't remember anything that really stood out. I remember announcing, like, we're gonna have a primary and we're gonna vote for a presidential candidate in our classroom, and one student just shouted out, Bernie Sanders! And I thought, oh, that's so exciting. You're 9, going on 10, and you know about Bernie Sanders. I
that
didn't learn about it until I was 17. So for her to know, I mean, she was just way ahead of the game.
Yes, that is really awesome, and I'm glad to hear it. And Chad was telling us that Zach, I believe another delegate, did something similar with his class, and that I know that there were several teachers that were in the various delegate processes as we went through that were trying to move along the process. So I'll try to make sure that that information gets spread out, and I'm sure they've gotten some great ideas. So I'm curious to see if there's some place, some group that's a group of teachers looking to try and combine these ideas and find the best ones and tweak ones that were really good and stuff like that. I think that that could be a very important component to moving forward in this movement at large, outside of Bernie and outside of all that, but just as a people, as a populace.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I've got to meet many amazing, diverse people through this caucus process, and I've met many teachers who have shared their ideas, and it's just amazing to hear what they and their students have done. I met one teacher who had a caucus in his classroom, and then when he went to his actual precinct caucus, he found one of his students there passing out pamphlets about Bernie Sanders. So the work we do as teachers is super challenging, but very rewarding at the same time. So I feel like I'm in the right
Yeah,
profession.
I am thrilled to have you on, and I look forward to being able to talk with you more in the future about what's going on in the classroom, civics engagement, and all of that. I'm going to bring Nis in to see if he had anything he wanted to add in or any questions he wanted to ask before we go. So, Nis.
Yeah, I do actually. In the beginning, when you were telling us who you were, one of the things you were saying was you work to get Bernie Sanders elected as president. And since you are a Bernie Sanders delegate, that makes perfect sense. And we've had we've had many people on our various shows talking, saying the exact same thing. But it just hit me that, well, Hillary has been crowned the presumptive nominee, even Obama has endorsed her, and I was just thinking, like, okay, you actually believe that is still possible, so I would ask you, do you actually believe that's still possible, and if so, how?
Absolutely. I'm working my heart out to get Bernie Sanders elected as our president, and I know our entire delegation for Bernie in Washington is doing the same thing. People are taking up, different roles to be leaders, and that's exactly what Bernie is calling for. This is something for the long run. That's why we're in the Democratic Party. We're building it to make it stronger for the future and bringing younger Americans in, and we need to look past November to build a progressive state. So I'm very hopeful. I guess you can say I kind of have tunnel vision only for Bernie. My focus is only on him, getting him elected, and helping him push for a progressive platform that's for us. So.
Okay, but since Hillary Clinton with the superdelegates has enough votes now to clinch the nomination, I'm just wondering, how do you see it as being possible? Like, do you feel like the convention is going to be a brokered convention, or do you have any insight?
I'm walking into this convention expecting it to be brokered. Going to use my persuasive skills to maybe sway some delegates the way that I swayed my mom, who was very strongly for Hillary, to join our revolution. Does that answer your question? I don't have any strategic.
So I thought, or rather, most people think that pledged delegates are pledged, that they cannot shift their vote. You're talking about convincing them to vote otherwise. Do you mean on the first ballot or on the second ballot?
I'm actually not sure myself, but what I can do is get some more information and then maybe come back on Project Sanity and be more informed to tell you about that.
Sure.
But I am new to the process, so I'm learning as I go, and yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. That was not to trip you up. That was just to get some clarification. So thank you so much for joining us, Trang. And I really think that you and Adair and the entire Washington State delegation are going to do an amazing job at the convention. And we are really looking forward to getting the inside look at how such a convention is going on a day-to-day basis. So thank you so much for joining us here at Project Sanity, and we are looking forward to having you back in the near future as the convention starts to run up.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you also, Trang, and I just wanted to mention down in the description beneath us, you can find a link to her GoFundMe. Washington delegates, along with delegates across the country, need help getting to Philly. It's not cheap to get to Philly and get the hotel, anywhere from a couple thousand to several $1,000s to be able to fund the trip. So if you can, please support them, or at least share the link with people that may be able to support getting our delegates there. And I couldn't be happier with the delegates that we're sending, Trang, Adair, and others that are going. Thank you all so much for going and going through the effort that it takes to get there. And so I'll hand that back to Nis.